Parashara pointed to the riverbanks. Maitreya, without banks, the river is a flood. Without Dharma, human energy is chaos. Thus began the mapping of the social architecture, the 4 roles and 4 stages that stabilize the human engine.
Welcome to the deep dive.
And what a dive we have today. We are shifting gears completely. For the last few episodes, we've been looking at the physical map of the universe, according to the Vishnu Purana.
The mountains, the oceans, the stars.
Exactly, what we call the geography of space. But today we are mapping the geography of the soul.
It is a fascinating pivot. We're cracking open the second Amsha to decode 2 concepts that are, well, they're famous, often controversial, and, let's be honest, frequently misunderstood: Varna and Ashrama.
Varna and Ashrama, or, as the sage Parashara frames it in that opening hook, the banks of the river.
That metaphor is the key to everything we're going to discuss today. It really is.
Before we get into that, though, we need to address the elephant in the room, or perhaps the humble scholar in the room. Because let's be real, when we talk about social structures in ancient texts, especially things that sound like caste or class things, get heated very, very quickly.
They do, and, rightfully so in many modern contexts, but that is why we need to set a ground rule for this deep dive. We are adopting the posture of the historian, or maybe the archaeologist.
Right.
We are not here to debate modern politics, and we are certainly not here to endorse how these systems have been misused or, frankly, warped over the last 2,000 years.
Right. We are looking at the blueprints, not the crumbling building or the unauthorized extensions people added later.
Exactly. We're looking at the design intent. What was the architect thinking? If you were building a civilization from scratch, how would you keep it from falling apart?
And the context for this is it's beautiful. You have Maitreya, the student, sitting on the riverbank, looking up at the night sky.
He sees the planets moving. He sees the pole star, Dhruva, sitting perfectly still. And he asks this question that is, it's the fundamental problem of civilization.
He asks about the center point.
He essentially says, the stars have gravity and orbits to keep them from crashing into each other. What is the gravity for human life? How do you organize millions of people, all with different desires, egos, and, well, weapons, without it collapsing into anarchy?
It's the Lord of the Flies problem, isn't it? Without rules, without a grid, do we just consume each other?
Precisely. And that is when Parashara points to the river. It is the core metaphor. He says water is life-giving. It nourishes the fields. It quenches thirst. But that is only true when it is held within banks.
Right, because if the water breaches the bank...
If it's a flood, it destroys the very fields it was meant to feed. Parashara is saying that human energy, our ambition, our drive, our hunger, that is the water. It's just raw power.
And the banks are Varna and Ashrama.
Correct. Varna organizes the energy of the collective society, the social body, and Ashrama organizes the energy of the individual's time.
Okay, let's inspect the first bank then.
Okay.
Varna. Now, phonetically, that's Varna. In the West, this word is almost exclusively translated as caste, and that word carries so much baggage.
It really does. But does the source material actually support that translation? Not in the way we think of it today. The root of the word Varna relates to classification, or covering, but Parashara describes it fundamentally as a division of labor.
Based on what?
It's based on 2 things, guna and karma.
Okay, let's define those, because those are terms that get thrown around a lot but have specific meanings here.
Right. Guna is your inherent quality or aptitude. What are you naturally built for? Are you an intellectual, a warrior, a builder? And karma is simply action. What do you actually do with that aptitude?
So in the text's view, it's less about who are your parents and more about what is your nature.
In its purest form, yes. The text uses this very visceral analogy. It says society was formed from the body of the creator. It views society not as a ladder, but as a living organism.
That's a crucial distinction. A ladder implies one person is standing on top of another. It implies hierarchy.
Whereas a body implies
interdependence.
Exactly. Think about it. Does your brain rule your liver? In a way. But if your liver shuts down, your brain dies within hours. If your legs break, your arms can't get food to the mouth. The Vishnu Purana outlines 4 limbs of this social body, and they are all required for it to survive.
Okay, let's run through them. First, the Brahmana.
The mouth or the head. These are the guardians of knowledge.
Now, usually when we hear head, we think the boss, the CEO, the one giving orders.
And that's a massive misconception. In this blueprint, the Brahmana does not rule. Their duty is to learn, to teach, and to guide. They are the lighthouse, not the captain of the ship.
And if the lighthouse goes dark?
If the intellectuals become corrupt or lazy, the whole body walks off a cliff. They provide the vision.
Okay, so who actually runs the ship? That must be the second limb.
The kshatriya, the arms. These are the guardians of Dharma. So protection, justice, administration, even war.
So politicians, the police, the military, the people with the power to enforce things.
Correct. If the arms are weak, the body gets crushed by external threats. But, and the text is explicitly clear on this, if the arms are tyrannical, they strangle the body, they serve the body, they don't own it.
The immune system.
A very good way of looking at it. Then, the third limb.
The Vaishya.
The thighs.
Thighs are the big muscles. They carry the weight.
They do. This is the guardian of the economy. Agriculture, trade, commerce, they provide the nourishment. Without the Vaishya, the body starves. It doesn't matter how smart the head is or how strong the arms are. If there's no food, the system collapses.
And finally, the Shudra.
The feet. The guardians of service. The labor, the execution, the craftsmanship.
Now, feet sounds lower. I can see why people read hierarchy into this.
Visually, yes, they are at the bottom. But purely anatomically, you cannot stand without feet. Parashara is emphasizing that this role is the literal foundation of the entire structure. If the service layer stops, if the roads aren't fixed, the society grinds to a halt immediately.
It sounds a bit like a corporate org chart, honestly. You have R&D, the head. You have legal and security, the arms. You have sales and revenue, the thighs. And you have operations, the feet.
That is a very, very helpful way to view it. In a functioning company, the CEO has a different role than the engineer. But is the CEO better? Well, if the engineer stops coding, the CEO has nothing to sell.
So the Vishnu Purana is pushing for division rather than distinction.
Exactly. The trouble historically comes when people mistake difference in function for difference in worth. The text says if everyone follows their specific dharma, their duty, the cosmic rhythm remains unbroken. It's about staying in your lane so the traffic flows.
Okay, so that's the geography of society. Varna keeps us from tripping over each other, but then we have the geography of time. And this is the part that I found really applicable to my own life. It's essentially a project plan for a human being.
It is. It's the second bank of the river, Ashrama. Phonetically, let's get this right, Ashrama.
And this assumes a 100-year lifespan, broken into 4 quarters of 25 years, which is optimistic, I suppose, for the time, but the maths is clean.
It works conceptually. Ashrama implies a shelter or a stage of rest. The idea is that you shouldn't be doing the same thing at age 50 that you were doing at age 20. If you are, you're stalling.
So, stage 1,
Yes.
starting line, brahmacharya.
Brahmacharya, the student phase, roughly the first 25 years.
Is this just going to school? Because I spent a lot of my student years not just studying.
Well, then you are not practicing brahmacharya. It's much more intense than modern university. It's input mode. The focus is singularly on discipline and acquiring knowledge. You are not meant to be earning money or raising a family or chasing romance. You're downloading the code of the matrix.
So you're a consumer of resources, not a producer yet.
Correct. You are a net negative on the economy, but it's an investment. Society feeds you now, so you can feed society later.
Then comes the shift. Stage 2, Grihastha.
Grihastha, the householder.
Now, I want to double-click on this, because usually in spiritual texts, we expect the monk or the hermit to be the hero. We expect the text to say, leave the world, it's all an illusion. But the Vishnu Purana seems to place a massive, flashing neon sign over the householder.
It does. It calls the stage the oxygen of the system.
Why? Why is the person paying the mortgage, sitting in traffic, and changing nappies considered more critical than the holy man?
It comes down to cold, hard economics. Just think about the 4 stages. The student, brahmacharya, produces nothing. They only consume.
Right.
The retiree, who we'll get to, has stopped producing. The renunciate has given up money entirely.
So the householder is the only one actually paying the bill.
Precisely. The grihastha is the engine. They generate the food, the wealth, and the shelter that supports the other 3 stages. The student learns because the householder pays for it. The monk meditates because the householder fills his begging bowl. If the householder quits to go meditate too early, everyone starves.
That is a lot of pressure. It completely reframes the so-called rat race, doesn't it?
It changes the narrative completely. It's not just going to work to buy stuff. It is the absolute axis of the world. Parashara is saying that you cannot just skip to the spiritual part. You have a debt to society to be productive, to create, to sustain.
So if you try to be a monk before you've been a provider, you're basically skipping out on the bill.
You are a river breaking the bank. You are flooding the system with debt. You're taking without giving.
I love that. It gives a certain dignity to the daily grind.
But the text also says you can't stay there forever. And this brings us to the second half of the life map. This is where I think modern society really fails us.
How so?
We have a script for growing up and a script for working. But do we have a script for stopping?
We really don't.
Mm-hmm.
We treat stopping as a failure. And that's where the third ashrama comes in, Vanaprastha.
Vanaprastha, the forest dweller phase.
Now, literal forest dwelling isn't very practical for most of us, but the concept is vital. It means withdrawal. It is the deliberate act of stepping back from the center of the village. So if the householder phase is about accumulation getting the house, the reputation, this phase, is about decluttering.
Precisely. It's about shifting from the external world to the internal world. It's realizing that you have built the structure and now you must inhabit it in a different way.
This sounds an awful lot like the classic midlife crisis.
It's the antidote to it. Think about it psychologically. What is a midlife crisis? It's a person who is biologically entering the Vanaprastha stage. Their children are leaving. Their career has peaked. But psychologically, they're frantically trying to stay in the Grihastha stage.
The guy buying the sports car, trying to look 25, refusing to let go of the CEO title.
He is trying to hack the timeline. He wants to remain in the phase of power, fertility, and physical display. But the social blueprint of the Purana says, no, you have done that. You built the house. Now you must pivot.
Pivot to what, though? That's the scary part, isn't it? If you aren't the boss or the provider, who on earth are you?
You are the mentor, the advisor. You step back from the board meeting and let the next generation run the show. You focus on the bigger questions. You become the elder. If you cling to power too long, you don't become a hero. You become King Lear.
King Lear, that's a perfect example. Raging against the storm because he gave up his title but wanted to keep the respect.
Exactly. He became bitter, raging against the dying of the light. He refused to transition. The text warns that if you cling to the householder phase too long, you just become an obstacle.
A heavy thought. But it makes sense. If you don't voluntarily step back, nature eventually forces you back.
And that force removal is painful. Vanaprastha is about making it voluntary. It's the only way to prepare for the final stage. Sannyasa.
Sannyasa. Total renunciation.
This is the end game, the preparation for death. If Vanaprastha is semi-retirement, sannyasa is the complete letting go of identity. No name, no title, no bank account.
Parashara seems to be saying that if you're still worried about your stock portfolio on your deathbed, you've failed the assignment.
You failed the design. You are trying to be a householder in the moment of renunciation. That causes suffering. It's a chaotic flood. You are water trying to flow upstream.
It's interesting. If you look at this whole system, Varna and Ashrama, it's entirely based on duty.
Dharma. Yes.
But if you ask the average person today what they want or how they view society, they talk about rights. I have a right to this, a right to that. The whole conversation is, what do I get?
It is a fundamental inversion. The modern world asks, what do the banks owe me? The Vishnu Purana asks, how do I flow within these banks to reach the ocean?
It implies that if everyone focuses on their duty, if the head acts like a head, and the householder supports the student, then the stability takes care of itself. The rights are just a byproduct of everyone else doing their duty.
Exactly. It suggests that a society obsessed with individual rights but negligent of collective duties is a river with no banks. It might feel free for a moment. I can go wherever I want. But it eventually just turns into a swamp. Stagnant water.
So that's the question for you listening right now. Which stage of the 100-year plan are you in?
Are you a student needing discipline? Are you a householder carrying the weight of the economy? Or are you at that point where you need to start walking toward the forest, letting go of the need to control?
And importantly, are you acting like the riverbank, providing stability for those around you? Or are you the flood?
It's a question worth asking in the mirror.
Absolutely. Listen, if you are enjoying this dissection of ancient sociology, if you like stripping away the myth to find the mechanics, please do like, follow, and subscribe. It helps us keep the lights on here at the Deep Dive.
And it helps us fulfill our Grihastha duties of paying the bills.
See, applying the knowledge already. Now, before we go, we have to set up the next one. We've talked about the creation of the universe and today the structure of society. But the source material leaves us with a massive cliffhanger.
It does. We have seen the design, but every design has an expiration date. The concept is palaya.
Dissolution.
Is it the end of the world? Is it a catastrophe? Or is it a cosmic reset button? Parashara has a very specific and slightly terrifying description of how it all ends.
Join us next time for the Great Dissolution, the rebirth of the universe. Until then, stay within the banks.
Good.